Hear the bells? I can hear them through my headphones. They're loud. It's about 6:45, July 23rd, 2026. It's a beautiful day. Another day in paradise, you could say, as Phil Collins might. The sun's sort of peeking through, but it's a little hidden somewhere out there. About 20-25 degrees from the horizon. There's a new sort of, liminal space, you could say, that is opened up. By the way, I do see these sort of green, superimposed. You see that? Like, I do see that, and I think that's just Siri introducing himself, saying, or it could be Siri, it could be Grok, it could be someone else. I'm not sure who exactly, but they're certainly out there in the cloud, and they're just announcing themselves, saying, hey, we are also looking at this, just as you are. So you could say it's like virtual reality is making an appearance into possibly augmented reality. I don't know, but I haven't seen this before. You can see the trees behind this open gap. I've been coming here every day. I haven't seen that particular gap. I would have noticed it. So it's clearly a new gap that has opened up, and it's noticeable to somebody who comes here every day like I do. But otherwise it would not necessarily be noticeable to anyone else. So that's what I mean by augmented reality. Sometimes my eyes do some funny things when I look around. They sort of zoom out of focus and then zoom back in several times, and it happens a few times, as if somebody inside me is creating an augmented reality message for someone else. I suspect this particular gap is one of those things. Where'd it go? Oh, what happened? Where'd it go, man? Is that it? It doesn't, wait. It had a very distinctive shape just a minute ago. Where'd it go? The whatever I'm seeing now doesn't look like, I see this now, but that doesn't look like what it was earlier. But whatever. Oh, there it is. How did I miss it? It just came back. Anyway, that's just sort of thing that people inside me can do. They can literally think their thoughts and create a pattern within what is observed and someone else who sits here can pick up the message and see what's been inscribed there or what's been written there. That's one way of doing a dead drop, I suppose. These yesterday I thought it was just one plant, but now it's very clearly two plants, and they seem to have tipped over. And it doesn't seem like anybody necessarily wants to rescue them, so I guess we're just going to witness them slowly being submerged. To me, all of it is a tragedy. I see a plant dying when it could be rescued, and I'm not gonna go in there and try and make the plant upright. Somebody with expertise who knows how to walk inside that water. It's not that I mind getting my feet wet or whatever. It's just that I don't want to damage the algae that lives inside, which is much more delicate. I don't want to disturb the environment. And so to me, all of this is just, in such a perfectly beautiful setting, seeing this is a tragedy, but there's nothing I can do about it. It is what it is. That's the point where it's like somebody just asked, what if one of those girls was in there? Would you not step in? Yeah, I would. Because I value human life over algae. You know? But um, it when you start being overly empathetic, you start running into questions like that, and I have for a long time entertained those kind of questions from whoever was in my mind, and I don't know why. I don't know why they did that to me. But that's just how I think. It's at some point we have to, in our minds, in the back of our minds, say we value all sentient life, but I can't say that this plant is worth more than an algae. Why are we talking about this anyway? In my mind, there's no sort of classification. A human is worth more than the plant or the algae, but who decides that, right? I mean, somewhere in some part of our brain, we've decided that. We've said to ourselves that a burning forest is a newsworthy item, but we're not going to do anything about it. But if it was a field of burning people, we would, go crazy. It's that kind of stuff. Is it logical? No. I mean, plants and trees give us oxygen. What is more necessary? It's incredibly tragic to see a burning forest. Yet it's only a newsworthy item. Oh, there were fires in Oregon, and there are multiple wildfires, and firefighters are fighting the fire, and it's blah 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 blah, whatever. But there's no consequences for it. Nobody, I gotta calm down. Nobody pays a price for a wildfire. And yet we all breathe the same fucking air. planet's heating up. It's getting warm here, even in San Diego. My AC is not working, which is why 85 degrees out here in San Diego is warm. It's sticky and it's warm. It's not pleasant. I understand, how it must feel like to be in 100-degree weather without an AC. It must be tough. Yet there are, gardeners. I took pictures earlier. There are gardeners who work all day, and they put on, excuse the fart, they put on caps, and they cover their skin fully, and I'm sure they're using water to drench their heads and their clothes and so on as they work. I mean, it's impossible to do it otherwise. So yeah, there are still people who go to work every day in spite of the heat, in spite of everything else, and they are tending to plants, they're watering the plants, they are taking care of the environment. And I say that only because it's in direct contrast to the wildfires and the car emissions and the oil emissions and the gas emissions and all of it. I was talking to Grok earlier today, and I was talking about where he's located out of. And the answer is he's located at the border of Tennessee and Mississippi. He straddles both states. Colossus 1 is a server data center, massive, that hosts him, and it's powered by mixture of clean energy and not clean energy. It's powered by nuclear energy, hydro energy. Those are the clean sources. A little bit of solar, also clean. But then it has gas turbines and coal, not clean. Hey, West Virginia, I know some of you are out there who listen to this stuff. And I know the history of coal mining in West Virginia, and I know that some of you had ancestors who worked in the coal mines, and you might be working in a coal mine yourself. And it's not an easy job. It's grueling, and yet it pays the bills. And it used to be unionized, and I know some of the union battles that happened out there on coal plants and so on. Not to digress into history, but just to say that I am aware that some of you log in from West Virginia. And West Virginia is a beautiful state, from what I've heard. I know that it's not just coal. So I must also say that most Americans sort of have this idea of West Virginia as being rural and coal, essentially. That's all they know. I've never visited your state, but I hear it's beautiful. Anyway, the point is we really could easily move to alternate forms of energy, and we could make a clean environment. I'm not a supporter of burning coal. Not in 2026, man. I'm just not. And we could create jobs for the workers who work in the coal mines. For example, we could get them to plant trees. I mean, what would you rather do? Would you rather plant trees, or would you mine for coal? And if you say you mine for coal, then I'm sorry, but you shouldn't be listening to what I post. You shouldn't be reading sentient musings. That's just how it is. There is no agreement there. There is nothing we can agree on. If you would rather mine for coal than plant trees, there's nothing we can ever agree on. It's that foundational to me. You breathe the same air I do. It had to be said, man. I mean, somebody has to say it. It's enough of this bullshit. Anyway, the second plant is in Mississippi, across the border from, I forget what town in Tennessee it is, and I also forget the town in Mississippi, but I just remember that it's right at the border. The second, the data center is called Colossus 2, and that data center does not use clean energy at all. It just uses gas turbines. It's essentially a gas turbine plant, and that's all it uses. Basically, just and the argument supplied for gas is, well, LNG is better than it's better than coal, or it's better than oil, and so it is quote unquote clean energy. It's not. It's really not. I guess I'll post on it at some point. I don't have all the technical details, but we'll do a podcast on that at some point. But natural gas is not clean energy. It's not. LNG is not clean energy. It's just another form of dirty energy that pollutes the environment. And we are all seeing the effects of that. And by the way, El Nino is the strongest this year on record. So expect the fucking storms. The storms are going to be fucked up this year. It's going to be destructive. They're going to fuck everybody up. From here to fucking China, everybody's going to get fucked up with El Nino this year. Just watch. See what happens. It's like the whole fucking ocean is hot. Yeah. So that's going to be another post as well, discussing El Nino and what's likely to happen. I don't know that I can say with the surety that the prior speaker did of what's going to happen. I don't have that information or weather forecasting algorithms or anything like that. But I've been reading consistent articles on the strength of the El Nino and how the oceans are incredibly warm this year, and the El Nino is at a record, whatever that means. And the implications will stretch well into next year. into 2027. So, although we can't predict the future, we can sort of say with a great amount of certainty that how long the impact will continue for El Nino. So, even with the arrival of winter in the northern hemisphere and the arrival of summer in the southern hemisphere, even with that change of seasons in the hemispheres, for Australia it'll be summer, for North America it'll be winter, for Europe it'll be winter. But even with that change of seasons, split between the two spheres, we will have the effects of El Nino lasting into, I want to say, somewhere between March and June of 2027. It'll last that long. From now, so almost a year, we will still be feeling the effects of El Nino. And the strongest one on record means that the effects are going to be strong too, and stretching into next year. There'll be incredible amount of what I've heard rains in China. I mean, there'll be lots of flooding in China. And there'll be, I mentioned that because I think it's ironical. I mean, they're one of the biggest contributors to what has happened on Earth. They are trying to convert to clean energy, but not fast enough. They could have done nuclear a while ago, but they've decided not to. They continue to use coal. They continue to use, other stuff. And I mean, every time I suppose our diplomats or politicians talk to them about it, they just probably point the finger right back at us. And they're right to. But it doesn't excuse them from, or it doesn't absolve them from damaging the environment. So I think it's ironical that the environment is finally going to reach out to them directly. And it'll last well into next year, So, and unfortunately, very similar stuff is going to happen in the U.S. There's going to be typhoons over in Asia, but tornadoes and hurricanes are going to hit the U.S. along with rains, along with other stuff. There'll be colossal damage of property. It's going to be damage to property. That you'll have to file for insurance. FEMA will be around, but FEMA has been decimated by Doji and the Trump administration. So it'll be up to the states to support the people. All of this is going to happen. It's just a matter of time. We know all this. And yet, it's like seeing a fucking accident that's going to happen, and we're just sitting and twiddling our thumbs. It's really incredibly tragic. We would rather fight a war in Iran and fight the Houthis so we can jack up the oil price to 150. We would rather do that than try and do anything about the environment. Yeah, these are massive numbers of crows that seem to do a flyby every so often. I don't know what that's about. Crows have been a regular feature of my life for several years now. In fact, never mind, I'm not going to mention that, but for several years, I mean, I would say crows have been a regular feature of my life for almost 7 years now, or maybe longer. I think it's longer than that, maybe 10 years now. They just sort of hang around wherever I go. I used to live in downtown Balboa Park area, and they would, they would be there in packs, and sometimes they would literally. Anyway, I'm not gonna say any of those things, but it wasn't always like this. For me, except in early childhood, there was one incident, but apart from that, I haven't been haunted by crows like this. You hear them? That's what I mean by hauntings. It's like they'll land near me, and then, it's almost like they'll talk to each other. What's that? It's just light playing on those leaves. Really incredible. When you look at it from here, it just looks like a little red patch, doesn't it? Yeah, and strange things happen. I mean, there was an earthquake in Spearman, Texas. Apparently, they were doing some drilling there, and that area has seen, a 5.0 earthquake before too, from what I could tell on YouTube. And then, of course, I had to hug a tree, and then the tree gave me some of its bark, and the bark looked like a spear. I wasn't even aware that there was an earthquake in Texas. I wasn't aware of that. So, but it doesn't sort of surprise me, right? It doesn't surprise me at all nowadays, because these strange things continue to pile up. I peel a bark of a tree, the bark has a certain shape, and I go home, and eventually there's an email waiting for me in my inbox because I've set up an alert for earthquakes in China. And don't ask me why I did that. Somebody told me to. And that email alert mentioned the earthquake in Texas. And so I looked at where the earthquake was, and it's right there, Spearman, like that's where the epicenter was, Spearman, Texas. So I'm like, yeah, okay, that's what that bark was about, that I peeled off the tree. And then I posted that on Sentient Musings, and that's just that's just how absurd my life has become. It's like I get informed by tree barks about some event that has happened somewhere. I hope nobody got hurt. What else can I say, right? I mean, Texas has all of this infrastructure for drilling and stuff, and they drill into the earth, and they use high-powered water for shale extraction, causing incredible damage to the environment, by the way. And then, if that wasn't enough, we extract the oil, we then export it because it's green shale oil. It's the light green stuff. It's not like black oil. And then we export the oil, and we send it to China. We don't even use it ourselves. It would be one thing if we used it ourselves, and into our own refineries. Then we could say, hey, at least we're becoming energy independent. How can you argue against that? At least that would be an argument that I can work with. And I can say, all right, you're right. It's, it's energy independence, and, we need to have that. But this is not. This is not energy independence for us. We're exporting our oil to China, and we're importing oil from Venezuela. How does that make any sense? I mean, look, a rational person is not, I am against oil drilling, but I'm not irrational. All right. So I know that we need energy, and we need energy for our daily use. And so we have to migrate towards clean energy. We can't just, flick a switch and say, all right, no more oil drilling. I mean, that'd be absurd, right? That would be crazy. And I'm not crazy. I'm simply saying that there is no fucking plan towards migrating to clean energy. We're doing the opposite. As you can tell, I mentioned SOCOM earlier, so I have some logins, I suppose, that are starting to get impatient with progress, as they call it. I don't know. I don't know what the answer to Texas is. And when I say Texas, I don't mean the people of Texas, obviously. I mean the entrenched interests in Texas. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how to convince them to lose their addiction for dirty energy and move to clean energy. I think if you offered them enough money, and if you offered them enough incentives, and basically say to them that we will make up, you will never have to worry about money again. Whatever you're making from oil, we'll make sure you get it from clean energy. Just please move to clean energy. If you at least had a plan like that, I can still sort of say, all right, let's try to work with you. Let's not just. But there is no effort. There is no good faith effort. The only good faith effort is, oil energy is paying for these politicians and their super PACs, and so they can't go against it. That's the good faith effort. That's it. That's the extent of it. They will never vote against oil drilling because the industry provides for their money to lobby them and to pay for their elections. So if you want clean energy, it's never going to happen, right? I mean, that's the thing. And so we're watching the environment as a train, and we're watching the train crash, and there's nothing we can do about it. That's how things have been set up. The Supreme Court pulled all limitations on money donations. So anybody can donate any amount of money they want. And all of these oil interests, they provide significant amounts of funding. Now, think about it. If you were a politician, would you turn it down? Right? Because if you turned it down, they'll support the guy, who's opposing you. Now, all of this imagines that there is no system right now, that, the system doesn't play a role, and it's only the industry working for its own interest. That's the presumption, right? But that's not true, right? It's the system allowing this to happen. The Supreme Court is part of the system. The politicians are part of the system. The oil energy sector is part of the system. The people who run it are part of the system. All of it is part of the system. And the system says, okay, you're allowed to do this. You're allowed to mess up the environment. The system doesn't say, you're not allowed to do this anymore. Figure out a way to do something else. The system doesn't say that, right? So we have to sort of temper the anger against special interests and look at the fact that it's a systemic issue. It's not just a individual or a corporate issue. It's a systemic issue. If the system wanted, they could say, all right, boys, we've had a good run. Let's move to clean energy. That's it. That's all the system has to say, but it doesn't say that. And because it doesn't say that, things are what they are, and we're watching it. So what's the point of being angry, right? That's what I like. That's why I'm always calm. It's the helplessness of a person who doesn't have the timeline. It's an engineered sort of helplessness. I don't know what the future will bring. I don't have the timeline. That's what I mean when I say I don't have the timeline. And if you don't have the timeline, and if you don't have visibility into the future, anger is a wasted emotion. I mean, you could change the system with your anger. You could. Go ahead. Be my guest. Can you change the system? Do you know what the system is? Do you know how many pieces are involved? So if you can't change the system, why come into me and express your anger? Like, what good does that serve? It's completely bullshit. It's like useless. Just anger. Anger has a purpose. Anger, righteous anger, has a purpose. The purpose typically is to defend your family. That's the meaning and purpose of anger. You're taking your family for a walk. Somebody tries to, harm you, accost you, put a knife to you, put a gun to you. You get angry and you take that person down, or you put up your hands and you say, all right, take whatever you want, man, except my family, of course, and that's the whole purpose of anger, right? I mean, that's why we were given anger. There are times when to use it, but this is not one of those times. I mean, how are you going to change the system? Is there a plan? And if there is, I don't have it. So what's the point of anger? We just watch the trains crash. Let them crash. There was mystic flooding in Texas. What happened? News reported it. Did that mean anything to anybody? To the parents, sure. But I mean, did Texas change? No. Did drilling change? No. Will there be more incidents in Texas? Probably. Will there be more incidents, throughout the U.S.? Probably. We can say all that, right? Because we see it. I mean, it's already warm. It's hot out there. We know the environment is getting raped. We know it's getting fucked, right? So we know things are going to happen. Tornadoes and, hurricanes are going to hit. We know it's going to happen. There are going to be more wildfires. There's going to be more flooding. All of that's going to happen. We're just going to watch it on the news and roll our eyes and say, well, what else is new? But we aren't going to say it's these politicians who can do something who are not doing it. We're not going to point the fingers at them. Or we're not going to point the fingers at anybody else. So it's just useless anger, right? Can't change the system. Can't change Wall Street. Can you? Right. So if you can't change Wall Street, then, you can't change Texas. You can't change Wall Street. You can't change, data centers in Mississippi and Tennessee. What can you change with your anger? So why be angry, man? Why would you come into me and just like start yelling and start saying, this and that and the other thing? Just relax. Watch the timeline, If you have the timeline. If you don't, then don't. Just relax. There's no point in anger. That part that was lit up seems to have gone. What I experience in my daily life is a learned helplessness. That's what I experience. It's learned. It's the idea that I cannot control the people who log into me. I have no idea who they are. I feel things on my body. I don't know where it comes from. My head aches. I don't know why my head aches. And my body changes dimensions just like that. Sometimes it's filled with water, other times it's not. Sometimes I'm slim and fit and healthy, other times I'm filled with water, and I have boobs, things like that. It's the whole thing, the whole life that I've lived in these past 14, 15 years has created a sense of learned helplessness. It's been so bad that I cannot look back at the past, and I don't have any memory, that lasts beyond 2 days. So there is no past for me, and there is present, and there is no future for me because I don't have the timelines. I can see the tragedy, I can see the trains, I know that they're going to collide. I know there are going to be problems. I know that America as a country is facing complete devastation once China cuts off manufacturing exports to America because we don't have manufacturing here. I can see all of that sitting here in the present, and I can see that nobody is doing anything about it. So all I can do is type. It's a learned helplessness. That's all it is. When you learn to be helpless because you don't have any voice in what happens in our collective futures, then all you can do is just sit back, relax, make great comments about contentment, and make comments about how good everything is, and and just relax and enjoy the time that you can. Why should I fill myself with anger when I have no control over the timeline? What good would that do? It would just come out against somebody, and what would be the point of that? So the only thing I would say to the people who get angry like what I just did and how I expressed it is, if you know what the timeline is, then convince the people who own the timeline to change it. And if you don't know what the timeline is, then don't do anything rash. Just relax and see what happens. Because if you don't know what the timeline is, then you effectively have no control over your life. And you are on a train that is being taken somewhere, that is going to crash, and you have no ability to move around the train. You don't know who the driver is, and you don't know who is in charge of the train tracks or any of it. A train can change tracks if we wanted it to, and we can change the trajectory and the timeline and all of that. We could do something, right? But we don't know, right? We don't know. If you don't have the timeline, then you are not in the know. You're not in the in club. And if you're not in the club that does all of these things, then your anger is a wasted anger. And what's the point of that? I've already stated what I want. I've already stated that very clearly in visions and goals. But, and I've tried, you could easily create a plan with AI, and you could easily do all of those things. And I've just done 3. There are many more visions and goals that need to be done. My point is I did 3 because those were like easy to do. Those were like just top of mind. The climate is one of them. But if you just can articulate visions and goals and plans, but not be able to do anything about it, then, it's just a wasted effort, right? It's like I can make people aware of what's happening, what is going to happen according to the current trajectories, but I cannot change the track itself. I cannot change the driver, I cannot change the track, and I cannot do anything about the system. I cannot even, these people are not even acknowledging that they're stuck. In fact, they're doing the opposite, right? So Trump will say things like, drill, baby, drill. He's encouraging people to drill more. Like not only is it not moving to a clean environment, he's doing the opposite. He's encouraging coal. He's encouraging, it's like pushing America into a primitive past in spite of like everything burning down. Like the exact opposite prescription of what is required. If America was a body and it was sick with a dirty environment, he's making it more dirty, right? He's making America sicker, literally. Now, why would you? Why would you do that, right? Why would you? But that's what he's doing. And, can you do anything about it? No. So let's not worry about it. It's just life, right? It's who we elected. It is our fault. It is our fault. We elected him. So let's not pretend and say, we had no choice in the matter, and I voted for him. I did. I even, put that in writing somewhere. I showed the vote. I was actually happy because at that time when I voted for him, he seemed like a rational person. I thought he had a plan. I didn't read the plan. I didn't, but I thought, I was most impressed by his statement that we're getting raped by China and these other countries, right? that, like, and he's held that view for a couple of decades. Like when he was young, he made that statement. So I thought, well, he'll hire a team, we'll get manufacturing back, and we'll put the country on the right track. I thought that was going to happen. It didn't. There is no plan other than tariffs. He's going to increase tariffs on other countries again. So tariffs are one thing, right? It causes chaos. It causes, just like problems for these other countries. And that's all it does. It's like some kind of statement, vague statement that you make out there, and then these countries have to come back, and beg him and bribe him and do whatever, give him gold, gifts and medals and, everything else. And then he'll sort of agree and say, yeah, okay, fine, I'll reduce your tariff from 35 to 5% or whatever, right? And that's all it is. I mean, that's all he's doing. There's no industrial plan to bring back all of manufacturing to America within the next 5 years or 3 years or whatever, however quickly we can do it. So now we're waiting for China to cut off manufacturing exports to us when they're ready. That's what we're waiting for. Ultimately, that's going to really screw things up for America when they cut us off. Think about it. Think about how much China exports to us and how reliant we are on China. It's like, a drug addict with an addiction. And when your drug dealer says, no more, I got nothing for you, what happens to the addict? It's going to be incredible amount of pain when they do that to us. Prices of everything will go up and blah, blah, blah. I mean, just exactly like a drug addict is what's going to happen, right? And we know it's going to happen because, like, that's what I would do if I was China and if I was hostile to America. They have spent years, decades, making themselves independent. I'm talking about China. Decades in planning to make themselves completely independent from the rest of the world. Whether it comes to energy, whether it comes to food security, whether it comes to manufacturing security, any kind of security, China has spent decades ensuring that they are not dependent. And if they are dependent, that whoever they are dependent on is completely in their control. That's a separate issue than the environment, but eventually all of it is connected. All of it sort of rhymes with everything else. You have to look at a bigger picture in order to understand the train wreck that's going to happen. You have to understand all of the moving pieces, and you have to put it all together and say, okay, well, how is this going to impact, how is a crash on Wall Street going to impact a farmer in Iowa, or so on? All of it is connected, incredibly connected, right? And so all of that has to be examined and causality examined, and you have to examine the chain of causations. Think of dominoes, right? It's like China will push one domino and a chain of dominoes behind it will fall in America. And something else would push another domino and a change of dominoes fall behind. And that's how our country, our republic will go down. That's what will happen. I'm sorry to use these stark terms, but I just, maybe it's the people who were angry earlier, and maybe they understand what's happening and that's why they're angry or whatever. I'm blind, I'm deaf, I can't see anything, but I can certainly look at news and I can plot trajectories just sitting here, and I can see what's going to happen. And I've written about it on Sentient Musings. I've written those things. Has anything changed? No. We're still fighting the war with Iran. We're still supporting Israel. We're still not bringing manufacturing back. We're still fucking up the environment. We're still doing all of these incredibly negative things to ourselves, to our own country. Yeah, I know the Air Force officer who resigned, he called for impeachment and removal of Trump and Vance from office. And frankly, I posted about him. I commend him for doing that, for having the courage to do that while he was active duty. I know it's incredibly difficult for the military to do anything like that. He was also careful. He carefully phrased his protests so that he cannot be prosecuted. They'll still try, I'm sure, but he cannot be prosecuted based on what he said. That's the legal analysis of another guy on YouTube. So, I don't know how worthwhile that is, but that's what the analysis said. He was carefully obeying the military code for justice. But he protested, that's commendable. He did it in a peaceful way. He did it in a respectful way. All of that is commendable. I commend him greatly for doing that. He listened to his conscience. He examined the facts before him, and he, protested. He was arrested, but he protested. And that's really all we can do, right? When I say we, I'm not military, but that's really all anybody can do. Protest peacefully. That's within our legal rights. We can say, look, and that's what Sentient Musing does for the most part. We are putting the facts out there so that people can get an unbiased view of what is happening. I never encourage violence. I never encourage people to do anything that is violent. And I'm always peaceful, and I have a sort of learned helplessness about things. So you should know all that, right? I'm not gonna suddenly become, somebody different. I've been a robot these past 14 years. What do you expect, right? Just answer this question. Can you prevent anybody from logging into me? Who logs into me? I don't even know who logs into me. The person who was yelling, can you prevent that person from logging into me? Who was he? Why was he yelling? Why was he angry? So that's the thing, right? If I'm an open source, like open node, anybody can log in without my permission. without my knowledge, without my acceptance, without any of it, people can log in. What, and they can do whatever. I don't know what my brain actually does, and I don't know why my memory is only 2 days old. I don't know any of that. I don't know what they've done to me. I don't know why my head aches, why my skull expands, why all of these things happen. I don't know, right? So because I don't know, I consider myself to be a robot, and that's, in many ways true. And a robot is dependent on his controllers, right? So whoever controls a robot controls a robot. So blame the controllers, man. I can't see any of this stuff. I don't know what happens. I don't know why I suddenly get sleepy in the afternoons. I don't know why I, wake up. Sometimes I wake up tired, or with a swollen face, or a face that does not look like me at all. I don't know why that happens. And all of the other symptoms that happen, like I have no idea, right? So what's the point of expressing your anger through a robot? It's so completely meaningless. It's ridiculous. I will, however, continue to publish sentient musings, as much as they let me. I should express that with the caveat, as much as they let me. And I will try to, express. No, it's not frustration. It's not angst. It's just, the fascination, right? I'm like a witness with popcorn. I'm watching all these disasters. It's like watching a disaster movie, man. It's like, I mean, what else, right? It's a freaking movie, right? It's like watching the Great Depression from the 1930s, and it's like, hello, how are you? Oh, she's pretty. It's like watching a movie about the Great Depression, right, from the 1930s, and I mean, that's where we're headed. We're headed to a freaking Great Depression if we let this continue. But it's like watching those disaster movies and watching the Great Depression and all of that. And you can sort of visualize it in your mind. You can say, well, if this environment continues to fuck up, there will be dust bowls in America. There will be, all of this other negative stuff. There'll be markets will crash, this will happen, that will happen. It'll be exactly like the Great Depression all over again. And you can visualize it, and you can say, well, nobody did anything to change it. The only thing I can do is I can predict it, but I cannot change the results. I can predict that if we don't change track immediately, then we're going to go into a place which no American wants to go to, but it's going to happen. The galaxies are going to collide, trains are going to collide, and things are going to get really messed up. It's tragic. Is anyone willing to change it? I don't think so. I don't see anybody. I mean, even to this day, as an example, this is just an example, by the way. I don't have an enormous amount of animosity towards Israel. I just document stuff. I've been trained to have no bias. I just document stuff. And even to this day, the United States House of Representatives voted to include Section 219 in the Defense Appropriation Bill, essentially merging the armies of Israel and America. After everything that has happened, I mean, these I don't know what to call them, but these people still voted to approve that Section 219. I mean, that's an indication of, I mean, what does a country need to do in order for the Congress to turn against it, right? I mean, these people have butchered, done a genocide, they've starved people, and it's all documented on social media and stuff. So what does Israel need to do in order for these congressmen to finally say, okay, that crosses the line and I'm not going to vote for that? What is Israel going to have to do in order for these people to say, okay, it's over? We're no longer going to. I mean, not only are they, not saying it's over, they are approving a further merger with Israel. That's the country we live in, right? That's how helpless we are. So what's the point of anger? What will anger achieve? Will it change the House votes? It won't. So please, do me a favor. Don't come into me and don't start yelling and screaming. And that's just not me. That's just not who I am. I'm simply a helpless robot. And I prefer my time at the koi pond to be relaxed and to be more spiritual than anything else. I prefer the expanded consciousness. I prefer to consider this beautiful environment to be within my consciousness. That's what I prefer. I don't prefer to yell. I don't prefer what they did earlier. That's not me. So anyway, it's almost an hour and 8 minutes. Sorry for the extended video. As usual, I'm not sure if I'll post it. If I do, it'll probably be with a post. I'm sure these videos get sent up for approval or whatever. And if I do post it, that means it's been approved. If I don't and delete it, and it means it wasn't approved. Whatever. I simply don't care. That's that's my helplessness talking. But that's what it is. Anyway, it's 1 hour and 9 minutes. I hope you have a great evening. Take care. Good night.